This video will go over your fraction quiz review. Feel free to skip to the questions that you missed so that you don't have to watch the entire video, though you absolutely can if you just want to make sure you're solving these correctly. Our first problem is 3/4 plus 1/5. When we are adding fractions, our first step is going to be to rewrite with common denominators. To find common denominators, we can use the least common multiple. In the case of 4 and 5, we could write out all of their multiples. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Our least common multiple is going to be our first repeating number. So we're going to write it something over 20 plus something over 20. Well, to get from 4 to 20, I would multiply by 5. So what I need to do to 3 is multiply it by 5 to get my new numerator. To get from 5 to 20, we multiply by 4. So I need to do 1 times 4. Our second step is then to add our numerators. So 15 plus 4 is going to give us 19, and our denominator doesn't change, so it stays as 20. Our third step is going to be to simplify if possible. 19 and 20 cannot be divided by the same number, so it is not possible to simplify, so this is our final answer. Whenever we are working with mixed numbers, our first step is going to be to convert to improper. If you know how to do it without doing this step, you can, but converting to improper typically helps us from making some calculation errors. So we're converting to improper. To do that, we can use popcorn method, or you might know it as Texas method. So we're going to do 2 times 4, and then do that plus 1. And when we do that, we get 9 over 2 minus, again, popcorn method, 11 over 6. Now we do our same steps for adding fractions. So those are our next couple steps, are what we just covered with the last problem. So we're going to find our common denominator, which can be 6. So to get 6 as our denominator for both of these numbers, 11 can stay the same because we didn't change this denominator. But for 9, we're going to need to multiply it by 3 because we had to multiply 2 by 3 to get 6. So 9 times 3 gives me 27. Now that I have it set up, we can subtract our numerators. So 27 minus 11 would give us 16 over 6. Now we need to think about, can I simplify? And since both of these numbers are even, we can at least divide by 2. And when I divide by 2, I'm going to get 8 over 3. Now I can't simplify any further, so this is my final answer. For our third question, we're multiplying fractions. When we are multiplying fractions, our steps are even more simple. So our first step is going to be to multiply across. So we're going to multiply numerator by numerator and denominator by denominator. So 2 times 3 gives me 6, and 3 times 7 gives me 21. These two numbers are both divisible by 3, so I'm going to simplify by 3, and when I do that, I end up with 2/7 for my final answer. So our steps were to multiply across and then to simplify if possible. Alright, our fourth problem is division, and we have a mixed number. So again, our first step is going to be to convert to improper. So I'm going to do that now by using the popcorn method, and when I do that, I get 13/4 divided by 7/8. Our next step is going to be to convert this to a multiplication problem, and we can do that by doing keep, change, flip. So we're going to keep our first fraction the same. So 13/4 gets to stay. We're going to change our division to multiplication, and then we're going to flip our second fraction to its reciprocal, so it would be 8 sevenths. Then we multiply across. So our normal steps at this point. When I multiply across, I get 104 over 28. Both of these are even, so I can divide by 2. And when I do that, I'm going to end up with 14 and then 52 on top. Again, they're both even, so we could divide by 2 again. And when I do that, I'm going to get 26 over 7. I can't simplify any further, so this would be my final answer. Question 5 is our first word problem, so we're going to read it first. Caroline is making a cake. The recipe calls for 4 1/4 cups of flour. How much flour is needed to make half of the recipe? So we first need to create our expression, or the math problem we're being asked to solve. For this problem, we know how much flour is needed for one whole recipe. If we are making half of the recipe, this word of lets us know that we are going to be multiplying. So our expression would be 4 1/4 times 1/2. Just like we did with our division problem that had a mixed number, we're going to do popcorn method first. And when I do that, I get 17/4. Then I bring the rest down. This is a multiplication problem, so I multiply across, and I get 17/8. I can't simplify, so this would be my final answer. For question 6, our first step is to convert to improper. So I'm going to use the popcorn method again, and I get 6/5 plus 3/2. Now I can't add yet, I need to get a common denominator, which is going to be 10. If you are ever confused on how to figure out our common denominator, we can always come up here and write out the multiples of our original denominators and see where their first number that matches is found, which in this case is 10. Now we need to think about, to get from 5 to 10, I had to multiply by 2. To get from 6 to whatever our numerator is, I also have to multiply by 2. So I'm going to have 12 over 10. To get from 2 to 10, I have to multiply by 5. So I have to do that same thing to 3, and I end up with 15 over 10. Now we can add our numerators. When I do that, I get 27/10. This can't be simplified, so it's my final answer. First thing we're going to do is convert to improper. So for 2 5/8, I'm going to get 16 plus 5, 21/8, minus 6 times 1 and then plus 1, 7/6. Now I need to find my common denominator, which in this case is 24. To get from 8 to 24, I have to multiply by 3. So I need to do that same thing with 21, and I'm going to get 63 for my new numerator. To get from 6 to 24, I multiply by 4. I do that same thing with 7 to get 28. Now we subtract our numerators. When I do that, I get 35 over 24. Now we think through, is this able to be simplified? In this case, it is not, so this is our final answer. Question 8, our first step is to convert to improper, so 5 times 2 plus 4 is going to give me 14/5 times, remember if there's not an operation symbol right here, that is multiplication, times 2/3. For multiplying fractions, we just multiply straight across, so 14 times 2 gives me 28. 5 times 3 gives me 15. This cannot be simplified, so this is my final answer. First step is to convert to improper for number 9. So 5 times 10 plus 2 is going to give me 52/5 divided by 4 times 1 plus 1, 5/4. We're going to keep the first fraction, so 52/5 gets to stay the same. We're going to change division to multiplication, and we're going to flip our second fraction to be 4/5. Now we multiply across, and when we do that, we end up with 208/25. This cannot be simplified, so this would be our final answer. For our second word problem, we would create our expression first. So after reading it, we see the original temperature was 35 1/3 degrees. Then the temperature dropped 10.5 degrees. And we are looking for the temperature at 7 p.m., so after that drop. If our temperature is dropping, that lets me know that I'm going to be subtracting. Now it's important that you think about the timeline here, right? Our first temperature was 35 1/3. And then it's dropping, so our temperature is subtracting 10.5. We now have our expression and we're ready to solve. Our first step is going to be to convert to improper fractions. So we're going to do 35 times 3. If ever you get numbers like this, you are more than okay to come over here and multiply it off to the side. We would get 15, carry the 1, 3 times 3, 9, plus that 1 gives us 105. Then we're going to add that 1, and we get 106/3. And that's being subtracted from 2 times 10 plus 1, which gives us 21/2. These two fractions don't have common denominators right now, so we need to find that. The common denominator for 3 and 2 is going to be 6. To get from 3 to 6, we would have to multiply by 2, so I need to do that same thing with my numerator, which gives me 212. To get from 2 to 6, we need to multiply by 3. I do that same thing with my numerator, and I get 63. Now we subtract our numerators, so the two top numbers, and again we can come off to the side and do 212 minus 63. We can't take 3 away from 2, so we'd have to borrow from this 1, making it 0. The 2 becomes a 12. 12 minus 3 gives me 9. Again, I have to borrow because I can't take 6 away from 0, so I get 1. This 0 becomes a 10. 10 minus 6 gives me 4, and nothing's being subtracted from this 1, so we bring it down. So we end up with 149/6. This can't be simplified, so this would be our final answer.